Welcome to the channel NextGen Tech Prep. In today's video, we are diving deep into essential questions and comprehensive answers for the Microsoft Fabric Analytics Engineer Associate certification. Whether you're preparing for an exam or just looking to sharpen your knowledge, you're in the right place. If you find this content valuable, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. Now, let's get started.
You have a custom direct lake semantic model named Model 1 that has 1 billion rows of data. You use Tabular Editor to connect to Model 1 by using the XMLA endpoint. You need to ensure that when users interact with reports based on Model 1, their queries always use direct lake mode. What should you do? The options are: Option A, from Model, configure the default mode option. Option B, from Partitions, configure the mode option. Option C, from Model, configure the storage location option. Option D, from Model, configure the direct lake behavior option.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: direct lake semantic model, always use direct lake mode, tabular editor, XMLA endpoint.
The correct answer is option D, from Model, configure the direct lake behavior option.
Why is this correct? D. The direct lake behavior property on the model object controls whether the model can fall back to direct query mode. Setting this to direct lake only ensures that queries always use direct lake mode and will fail rather than falling back if direct lake is unavailable. Why are the others incorrect? A. The default mode option defines the default partition mode for new tables but does not enforce direct lake only behavior or prevent fallback to direct query. B. Configuring the mode option on individual partitions does not prevent the model from falling back to direct query when direct lake memory limits or other constraints are exceeded. C. The storage location option specifies where the model's data is stored, but it does not control the query execution mode or prevent fallback behavior.
You have a Microsoft Power BI semantic model that contains measures. The measures use multiple calculate functions and a filter function. You are evaluating the performance of the measures. In which use case will replacing the filter function with the keep filters function reduce execution time? The options are: Option A, when the filter function uses a nested calculate function. Option B, when the filter function references a measure. Option C, when the filter function references columns from multiple tables. Option D, when the filter function references a column from a single table that uses import mode.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: filter function, keep filters function, reduce execution time, calculate, single table.
The correct answer is option D, when the filter function references a column from a single table that uses import mode.
Why is this correct? D. Replacing filter with keep filters on a single column from an import mode table allows the VertiPack engine to optimize the query. It avoids materializing a temporary table and preserves existing filter contexts, significantly reducing execution time. Why are the others incorrect? A. If the filter function uses a nested calculate, it introduces context transition overhead that keep filters cannot inherently optimize, as the complexity lies in the rotofilter context transition. B. Referencing a measure inside filter forces context transition for every row of the iterated table, which remains inefficient even if keep filters is applied. C. When filtering columns across multiple tables, keep filters cannot easily optimize the cross-table relationships, and the engine must still perform complex joins, limiting performance gains.
You have a semantic model named Model 1. Model 1 contains 5 tables that all use import mode. Model 1 contains a dynamic row-level security, RLS, role named HR. The HR role filters employee data so that HR managers only see the data of the department to which they are assigned. You publish Model 1 to a Fabric tenant and configure RLS role membership. You share the model and related reports to users. An HR manager reports that the data they see in a report is incomplete. What should you do to validate the data seen by the HR manager? The options are: Option A, select Test as Role to view the data as the HR role. Option B, filter the data in the report to match the intended logic of the filter for the HR department. Option C, select Test as Role to view the report as the HR manager. Option D, ask the HR manager to open the report in Microsoft Power BI Desktop.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords, dynamic role-level security, RLS, validate the data seen by the HR manager, test as role, fabric tenant.
The correct answer is option C, select Test as Role to view the report as the HR manager.
Why is this correct? C, because the role uses dynamic RLS, testing the role generally is insufficient. You must use the Test as Role feature in the Power BI service and enter the specific HR manager's email address to simulate and validate the exact data filtered for their identity. Why are the others incorrect? A. Testing simply as the HR role does not simulate a specific user's identity, which is required to evaluate dynamic RLS filters like USRPR, NCIPL, and AME. B. Manually filtering the report does not validate whether the underlying RLS security rules and DAX expressions are functioning correctly for the user. D. Having the user open the report in Power BI Desktop is inefficient, requires desktop access, and does not allow the administrator to directly troubleshoot the server-side RLS configuration.
You have a Fabric tenant that contains JSON files in OneLake. The files have 1 billion items. You plan to perform time series analysis of the items. You need to transform the data, visualize the data to find insights, perform anomaly detection, and share the insights with other business users. The solution must meet the following requirements: use parallel processing, minimize the duplication of data, minimize how long it takes to load the data. What should you use to transform and visualize the data? The options are: Option A, the PySpark library in a Fabric notebook. Option B, the Pandas library in a Fabric notebook. Option C, a Microsoft Power BI report that uses core visuals.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords, 1 billion items, parallel processing, minimize how long it takes to load, transform, and visualize.
The correct answer is option A, the PySpark library in a Fabric notebook.
Why is this correct? A. PySpark in a Fabric notebook utilizes Spark's distributed architecture for parallel processing, enabling efficient transformation and visualization of 1 billion items while minimizing data load times and duplication through direct integration with OneLake. Why are the others incorrect? B. The Pandas library is single-threaded and loads all data into memory on a single node, making it incapable of handling 1 billion items efficiently and failing the parallel processing requirement. C. Power BI core visuals are designed for reporting and basic visualization, not for heavy data transformation of 1 billion items, and they do not support the required parallel processing for large-scale data preparation.
You have a Fabric tenant that contains customer churn data stored as Parquet files in OneLake. The data contains details about customer demographics and product usage. You create a Fabric notebook to read the data into a Spark data frame. You then create column charts in the notebook that show the distribution of retained customers as compared to lost customers based on geography, the number of products purchased, age, and customer tenure. Which type of analytics are you performing? The options are: Option A, diagnostic. Option B, descriptive. Option C, prescriptive. Option D, predictive.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords, column charts, show the distribution, retained customers as compared to lost customers.
The correct answer is option B, descriptive.
Why is this correct? B. Descriptive analytics summarizes historical data to explain what has happened. Creating column charts to show the distribution of retained versus lost customers based on demographics and usage describes the existing state of the data. Why are the others incorrect? A. Diagnostic analytics focuses on understanding why something happened, which involves deeper drill downs, correlations, or causal analysis beyond just displaying distributions. C. Prescriptive analytics recommends specific actions or decisions to take based on the data, which is not performed by simply charting distributions. D. Predictive analytics uses historical data to forecast future outcomes or trends, whereas these charts only visualize existing historical data.
You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1 that contains a data flow named Data Flow 1. Data Flow 1 returns 500 rows of data. You need to identify the min and max values for each column in the query results. Which 3 data view options should you select? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. The options are: Option A, Show Column Value Distribution. Option B, Enable Column Profile. Option C, Show Column Profile in Details pane. Option D, Show Column Quality Details. Option E, Enable Details pane.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords, Fabric Workspace, Data Flow, Min and Max values for each column, Data View options.
The correct answers are Option B, Enable Column Profile, and Option C, Show Column Profile in Details pane, and Option E, Enable Details pane.
Why is this correct? B. Enabling column profile calculates column statistics, including the minimum and maximum values, for the selected column. C. Showing column profile in Details pane configures the Details pane to display the calculated column statistics. E. Enabling the Details pane is required to display the Details pane where the column profile statistics are shown. Why are the others incorrect? A. Show column value distribution displays the frequency and distribution of values, which does not provide the specific min and max values. D. Show column quality details displays the percentage of valid, error, and empty values, rather than min and max statistics.
You have a Fabric tenant that contains a Microsoft Power BI report. You are exploring a new semantic model. You need to display the following column statistics: count, average, null count, distinct count, standard deviation. Which Power Query function should you run? The options are: Option A, Table. Schema. Option B, Table. View. Option C, Table. Fuzzy group. Option D, Table. Profile.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords, column statistics, count, average, null count, distinct count, standard deviation, Power Query function.
The correct answer is Option D, Table. Profile.
Why is this correct? D. Table profile evaluates a table and returns a detailed profile of its columns, including statistics such as count, average, standard deviation, null count, and distinct count. Why are the others incorrect? A. Table schema returns a table containing schema information, like column names, data types, and positions, rather than statistical metrics of the data. B. Table view is used to construct a custom view of a table or data source to implement query folding, not to calculate column statistics. C. Table.fuzzygroup is used to group rows based on fuzzy matching criteria rather than generating statistical summaries of columns.
You have a Fabric tenant that contains a lakehouse named Lakehouse 1. Lakehouse 1 contains a delta table named Customer. When you query Customer, you discover that the query is slow to execute. You suspect that maintenance was not performed on the table. You need to identify whether maintenance tasks were performed on Customer. Solution: you run the following Spark SQL statement: describe detail Customer. Does this meet the goal? The options are: Option A, yes. Option B, no.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords, identify whether maintenance tasks were performed, describe detail, delta table.
The correct answer is Option B, no.
Why is this correct? B. Describe detail returns metadata such as table size, format, and file count, but does not show the transaction history of maintenance operations. To identify if maintenance tasks like optimize or vacuum were performed, you must use describe history. Why are the others incorrect? A. This option is incorrect because describe detail lacks the historical transaction log of the delta table, making it impossible to verify whether maintenance operations have been executed over time.
You have a Fabric tenant that contains a new semantic model in OneLake. You use a Fabric notebook to read the data into a Spark data frame. You need to evaluate the data to calculate the min, max, mean, and standard deviation values for all the string and numeric columns. Solution: you use the following PySpark expression, df. Explain. Show: does this meet the goal? The options are, option A, yes. Option B, no.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords, calculate the min, max, mean, and standard deviation, PySpark expression, df.explain.show.
The correct answer is option B, no.
Why is this correct? B. The df.explain method prints the logical and physical execution plans of the data frame for debugging. It does not calculate statistical metrics. Instead, df.summary or df.describe should be used to obtain min, max, mean, and standard deviation. Why are the others incorrect? A. This option is incorrect because df.explain.show only outputs the execution plan of the Spark data frame and does not perform any data profiling or statistical calculations.
You have a Fabric tenant that contains a new semantic model in OneLake. You use a Fabric notebook to read the data into a Spark data frame. You need to evaluate the data to calculate the min, max, mean, and standard deviation values for all the string and numeric columns. Solution: you use the following PySpark expression, df. Describe. Show: does this meet the goal? The options are, option A, yes. Option B, no.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords, df.describe.show, min, max, mean, and standard deviation, string and numeric columns, PySpark data frame.
The correct answer is option A, yes.
Why is this correct? A. The df.describe method in PySpark automatically computes summary statistics, including count, mean, stev, min, and max, for all numerical and string columns in a data frame when no specific columns are specified. Why are the others incorrect? B. This option is incorrect because df.describe.show is the standard and correct PySpark command to generate and display the requested summary statistics, min, max, mean, and standard deviation, for the data frame's columns.
You have a Fabric tenant. You are creating a Fabric data factory pipeline. You have a stored procedure that returns the number of active customers and their average sales for the current month. You need to add an activity that will execute the stored procedure in a warehouse. The returned values must be available to the downstream activities of the pipeline. Which type of activity should you add? The options are, option A, switch. Option B, KQL. Option C, append variable. Option D, lookup.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords, execute the stored procedure, returned values must be available to the downstream activities, Fabric data factory pipeline.
The correct answer is option D, lookup.
Why is this correct? D. The lookup activity can execute a stored procedure in a data warehouse and return the resulting dataset, making the output values available for downstream activities in the pipeline. Why are the others incorrect? A. The switch activity is a control flow activity used to evaluate a set of cases in branch execution, not to execute database stored procedures. B. The KQL activity is designed to run queries against Kusto databases, not to execute stored procedures in a relational data warehouse. C. The append variable activity is used to append a value to an existing array variable within the pipeline, not to execute database queries or stored procedures.
You have a Microsoft Power BI Premium per User (PPU) workspace that contains a semantic model. You have an Azure App Service app named App1 that modifies row-level security (RLS) for the model by using the XMLA endpoint. App1 requires users to sign in by using their Microsoft Entra credentials to access the XMLA endpoint. You need to configure App1 to use a service account to access the model. What should you do first? The options are: Option A, add a managed identity to the workspace. Option B, modify the XMLA endpoint setting. Option C, upgrade the workspace to premium capacity. Option D, add a managed identity to App1.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords Azure App Service app, service account, XMLA endpoint, premium per user, PPU.
The correct answer is option D, add a managed identity to App1.
Why is this correct? D. To allow App1 to authenticate using a service account, you must first enable a system-assigned or user-assigned managed identity on the Azure App Service, App1, so it can obtain Microsoft Entra ID tokens for authentication. Why are the others incorrect? A. You cannot add a managed identity directly to a workspace. Instead, you grant the App1 managed identity access to the workspace after the identity is created on App1. B. Modifying the XMLA endpoint setting, e.g., to read-write, is necessary for RLS modifications, but it does not configure App1 to use a service account. C. Upgrading to premium capacity is unnecessary because premium per user, PPU, already supports XMLA read/write access and service principal authentication.
You have a Fabric tenant. You are creating a Fabric data factory pipeline. You have a stored procedure that returns the number of active customers and their average sales for the current month. You need to add an activity that will execute the stored procedure in a warehouse. The returned values must be available to the downstream activities of the pipeline. Which type of activity should you add? The options are: Option A, get metadata. Option B, copy data. Option C, lookup. Option D, append variable.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords, execute the stored procedure, returned values must be available to the downstream activities, Fabric data factory pipeline.
The correct answer is option C, lookup.
Why is this correct? C. The lookup activity can execute a stored procedure in a warehouse and return the resulting dataset, making the returned values available as output for downstream activities in the pipeline. Why are the others incorrect? A. The get metadata activity is used to retrieve metadata about a dataset or file, such as its structure or size, and cannot execute stored procedures to return data. B. The copy data activity is designed to move data from a source to a destination, but it does not return the queried dataset as an output variable for downstream activities. D. The append variable activity is used to append a value to an existing array variable defined in the pipeline, not to execute stored procedures or retrieve data from a warehouse.
You have an Amazon Web Services (AWS) subscription that contains an Amazon Simple Storage Service, Amazon S3, bucket named Bucket1. You have a Fabric tenant that contains a lakehouse named LH1. In LH1, you plan to create a OneLake shortcut to Bucket1. You need to configure authentication for the connection. Which two values should you provide? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. The options are: Option A, the Shared Access Signature (SAS) token. Option B, the Secret Access Key. Option C, the Access ID. Option D, the Access Key ID. Option E, the Certificate Thumbprint.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords OneLake shortcut, Amazon S3, authentication.
The correct answers are option B, the secret access key, and option D, the access key ID.
Why is this correct? B. The secret access key is required as part of the AWS IAM credentials to authenticate the OneLake shortcut connection to Amazon S3. D. The access key ID is required alongside the secret access key to authenticate the OneLake shortcut connection to Amazon S3. Why are the others incorrect? A. Shared access signature, SASS, tokens are used for Azure storage authentication, not Amazon S3. C. Access ID is incorrect terminology, AWS uses access key ID for authentication. E. Certificate thumbprints are not used for authenticating OneLake shortcuts to Amazon S3.
You have a Fabric tenant that contains a data warehouse. You need to load rows into a large Type 2 slowly changing dimension, SCD. The solution must minimize resource usage. Which T-SQL statement should you use? The options are: Option A, update and insert. Option B, merge. Option C, truncate table and insert. Option D, create table as select.
To arrive at the correct answer, we focus on the keywords: Type 2 slowly changing dimension, SCD, minimize resource usage, T-SQL statement.
The correct answer is option B, merge.
Why is this correct? B. The merge statement efficiently processes Type 2 SCDs by combining insert and update logic into a single atomic operation. This minimizes resource usage by requiring only a single pass over the target data. Why are the others incorrect? A. Executing separate update and insert statements requires multiple scans of the target table, which significantly increases I/O overhead and resource consumption. C. Truncate table deletes all existing data, violating the fundamental requirement of a Type 2 SCD, which is to preserve historical records. D. Create table as select, CTAS, requires rebuilding the entire table. For incremental SCD updates, this introduces unnecessary overhead and complexity compared to modifying data in place.